everybody, Floppy Waffle 69 here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing our Down the Line series going down to the Daring. This is the Tier 9 Jutland. Now, the Jutland and the Daring are two oddballs in this line in general. We've covered so far from the Tier 5 to the Tier 8, and each step along the way has got us or I guess not got us, but we've learned and added new tools into our toolbox, and it's kind of created an identity for us on how to play these ships, kind of on the defensive mindset of things. And now the Tier 9 and the Tier 10, in my opinion, take that and amp it up to the next and final level. The Jutland and the Daring are both close to my heart. I do love these ships a lot, and I not that I have bias with the ships at all. But I want to keep that in mind and just put it out there that I do really love these ships. But I will be critical and hard on these ships at times as well. But really, there isn't too much to say negative about these ships, and that's why I really like them. At the end of the day, these ships are just good at what they do, and I think they're going to, perform when you need them to perform and just provide results for you and to you when you're playing these ships. I know way back in the day, and even now to this day, every time I log in or queue in and I see an enemy Jutland on the enemy team, or I see an enemy Daring on the other team, it actually, I do gotta go, oh, fuck, because I know that these ships are very good at kind of contesting and kind of locking down sectors and caps. And as another DD, I hate to fight these son of a bitches. I really do. Now, are there other DDs in the game that can actually shit on these ships? Well, yeah. I mean, no shit. But I feel like a very intelligently played Jutland and Daring. It's a very scary Jutland and Daring. And you're going to see I'm combining these two ships a lot just because, tomato, tomato, it's really like the last step up is when you get to the Daring, okay? What else? The Jutland, this is a very popular hull in the game. Wargaming loves using this particular hull and using this asset a lot. We just had the new Barfly come out, of the Barfleur, whatever the fuck you call it, which is the torpedo-focused Jutland. And then you have the La Pampa, which is a Tier 10 torpedo spamming ship, which is crazy. And then you have the Somme, which you earn through the collection. So there's a lot of Jutlands, in air quotes there, in the game. So there is differences across the board, but I think as a general term, the hull of the Jutland is a great hull, and Wargaming knows it too, and they love reusing this asset. So, but yeah, without further ado, I think I don't want to talk too much about speculization or anything like that. I just want to go right into the hard stats so I can go ahead and talk about her more in game, and we kind of get this well-rounded identity of her and talk a little bit about her, and then do my final thoughts on her. So let's get started. Okay, without the further ado, we're going to start off with the armor layout. Again, nothing has changed. This is a DD, standard DD. It's going to have standard DD armor across the board, which means it has none. So there you go. Going into the survivability, coming in at 18,400. Again, this is more middle of the road, but now we do have access to that consumable, which is a heal. And the healing consumable is going to do as follows. And I think it's worth talking about it now rather than later, because the heal is going to allow us to add extra HP to our ship, more than just survivability expert, right? Because obviously I obviously recommend taking survivability expert, though I can see the argument to drop survivability expert and pick up the superintendent instead, just because superintendent's going to allow you to get another charge of a heal, but also not just a heal charge, but also a smoke and a hydro charge. So if you want to utilize that route, by all means, I would just go ahead and exchange the two. I wouldn't really take both, just because they're kind of, in essence, doing the same thing. Just one is going to be more over time rather than immediate. Okay? But the heal does have an action time of 10 seconds. It's going to heal around 184 HP a second, which is going to be totally healed. Total healed amount is about 10% of HP, and a cooldown is 80 seconds. You start off with 2 base charges, and again, that superintendent, it's going to allow you to get that 3rd charge. So just something to consider or weigh in when you're building your commander. For me personally, it makes almost too much sense to do this build, but for me, I'm going to want to do the survivability expert just because I already have the survivability expert on my captain skill, and it works for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and take that because it's a generic term, and plus, for a lot of players that either, they like to bring their commander up with them for each tier, so they have to restart with a brand new spanking commander on each tier because they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, whatever, yada, yada, yada. I understand if you already have survivability expert, then by all means, just continue up with survivability expert, okay? But the superintendent now with the heal, again, that's another option because you have a heal at your disposal, so you could consider going that route. What else? Let's go to the artillery. I already showed the gun firing angles. They're actually not bad at all. I find them incredibly useful and usable. So by all means, I don't think they're hard or anything I need worth pointing out, other than they are 360-degree turrets, which is super nice, super flexible, allows me to keep all my turrets to bear on target at times. But yeah, pretty good, pretty good. And these are the 3x2 113 millimeters. Now, what does 113 millimeter mean? Well, this means our HE is going to only be able to pen 19 millimeters of armor. Now, this is an important threshold. The vast majority of DDs, this should not be an issue. But when you start getting improved armor schemes, like a lot of people don't know, the Gearing has a 20 millimeter midsection belt. The Elbing has improved armor. The Haberosk has improved armor. The Ragnar improved armor. Your HE, all it's going to do is shatter. It's going to be doing no damage to the actual HP of the ship, and at that point you're going to be solely relying on high explosives for starting fires, and that's where your damage is going to tick. And we all know fires don't last incredibly long on DDs, and you're pretty much not going to be doing much damage anyways, and they're going to be killing you with the span of time that you're trying to set fires and kill them with fires. This is why you're going to need to make use of the armor piercing, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. This is your shorter fused AP with improved ricochet angles that can do far considerably more damage, as you can see on the side of your screen here. Only 1700 high explosive damage, but 2100 damage with your AP. We all know the Shimakaze can do, 2150, I believe, with its HE for a max HE alpha, so you can kind of see why using AP and swapping between the two ammunition types is essential, making sure you keep up to, up to snuff with other DDs in regard to the damage output. Yes, the Jutland's going to reload faster than Shima, but the Shima doesn't have to think as much when it's shooting its high explosive at the ship. It just has to hit you, and it's going to be doing pretty damn good colossal damage, with the exception of saturation. Again, your fire chance on the ship is 8%, which is actually not that bad. The HE or the 8% fire chance plus the 4-second reload will result in a 6.4 fires per minute. And again, you can get this or further increase this number by taking the main battery mod 3 in the number 6 slot, which I believe I recommended in the beginning of this video, and I still do. I just think it's the superior option for the ship, because the Jutland, getting a little sidetracked here, the Jutland used to be a lot better than it is now. Now, I would like to consider it's definitely balanced, and it's in a balanced state, so I'm happy to see that. When this ship first came out, it was not balanced. It was like a mini Daring at tier 9, and the Daring is pretty scary at tier 10. So at tier 9, you have a Daring. This thing can run into tier 7s. It was an absolute nuke fest in regards of what this thing can do to enemy destroyers, and honestly to enemy surface ships too. With the rapid fire HE spam this thing could pump out from behind islands, from its short burst smoke generators. It was just scary, and Wargaming saw this and they had to tailor it back. Thank God they did. So I just wish they'd do that with a lot of other ships too, rather than, my beloved here. But that's okay. This ship single-handedly won me many rank seasons and allowed me to rank out back in the day when that was the format, with ranking out rather than achieving your bronze, silver, and gold league that they do now. Because this ship just had a great combination of all the tools necessary in order to win competitive gameplay, and this is a very competitive DD. I can state that with the utmost certainty. This is a very competitive destroyer, especially once you learn how to play her. She gets that much better. Okay. Again, the main battery firing range, I know I didn't really touch on it, but yeah, the main battery firing range is 12.5, which is more than enough based upon your shell velocity coming out with the initial speed of 746 meters a second. These are floaty shells, so you're going to have to factor that in accordingly. Because you get a faster rate of fire, Wargaming says, we're going to make the shells floatier, so make sure you learn to lead the target, yada, 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 all that kind of shit. So, and that's what they're doing, okay? And then to touch base on the armor piercing just ever so slightly, I know I kind of already did, but I want to touch base on it a little bit more. Remember, those improved ricochet angles from 60 to 68 degrees are essential. It's going to allow you to full pen and hit DDs without this auto ricocheting, especially when, because DDs can angle pretty quickly, so the angle changes more rapidly. This armor piercing is different compared to like that of the Germans. The Germans rely on raw alpha strike on their AP. I think it's like 3,000. The 3,000 will just flat out do damage because when it gets over penetrations, it's going to do whatever. And God forbid you actually are unable to full pen ships. Plus, that AP is going to be very effective against broadsiding cruisers and battleships if you aim right. Whereas this is going to be more detrimental towards DDs because they are thinner and the angle is changing ever more rapidly. But it's going to allow you to full pen way more and actually just penetrate is what we want. What we're looking for. We're looking for those penetrating shots to get us that massive AP hit volleys, which is going to take those DDs down by 2 to 3K a pop every 3.5, 4 seconds, right? Standard fuse time, well, I guess heightened fuse time at the 0.010 seconds, rather than some DDs having the 0.30 and 0.025 seconds. Remember, short fuse is 0.005 seconds, so this is right there, a little bit above that, kind of like shortened fuse times, but pretty standard for destroyers. Going to the torpedoes, and yes, I will point this out at the get-go right here. In the third slot, I do take a torpedo modification 3. Now, some people would disagree with me, and some people would say, hey, Floppy, like, why not just take aiming systems or whatever? This is gonna, and even the game recommends it, it's gonna allow me to hit my shells more, it's gonna increase the torpedo traverse speed, and the secondary blah blah, whatever the fuck, who cares about that? Well, yeah, I understand that, I hear you. But I wanted to give some love to my torpedoes, and I think a plus 5% speed boost is necessary, and it's going to allow even faster torpedo traverse time to get those torpedoes off in areas. Yeah, listen, I could go either way on this. I understand if you go full gunboat build, I get it. For me personally, I wanted to get a little bit more speed on my torps without having to take the torpedo speed skill, and this allows my torpedoes to just go ever so slightly faster. I believe it goes 65 knots, rather than the standard 62 knots. And believe it or not, I don't know what it is, but 65 knot torpedoes feel a lot more comfortable in the regards of the playstyle of this ship rather than the 62. Okay, it's tomato, just my opinion. If you would like to go more emphasis on your guns and chances of you hitting your shells when you're engaged in those DD conflicts, by all means do it. I don't really find there be an issue with me not hitting my shells when I'm engaged in those little DD knife fights. So I don't really need to spec the aiming systems modification, in just my opinion. Okay, if you're missing a lot of your shells and you're like a couple shells shy of winning that engagement, you end up losing a lot, and you're finding this to be a recurring theme, yeah, okay, go ahead and take the aiming systems mod. For me personally, not an issue. Okay, these torps do reload in 133 seconds, which is above the 2-minute mark. Keep that in mind. Maximum range is now 10 kilometers, thank God. And we have around 15,500 damage, or our maximum damage, with now our speed, because of our Torpedo 2 Modification 1, going to 65 knots with a detectability of the 1.3, which is leading us to a reaction time of 7.8 seconds. Yeah, the torpedoes are actually not bad now. They're pretty average in my opinion. Remember, we can launch these in single launch, and these are the quintuple launchers, so thank God. These torpedoes are hitting more often than not, because the quad launchers are the worst in the game in my opinion with torpedo dispersion. So it's nice that these have the 5 torpedo tube launcher, and again, that's 10 torpedoes I can send out down at my target at a specific time, and I can flood a channel too and potentially get a lot of torpedo hits as well. Yeah, these torpedoes are pretty standard. They hit pretty hard, pretty aggressively, and they do have a 259% chance of flooding, which again is actually not that bad. Again, having the trump card up my sleeve, which allows me to do the single launching torpedo, is very nice to have as well. Going to the depth charges, again, this has been a recurring theme of the Royal Navy line. Again, that mixed with their hydroacoustic search, with the 5,000 maximum damage, 2 charges, with bombs and a charge is 12. These things are quite potent submarine hunters, and I do like them a lot. Again, their biggest downside to hunting the submarine is going to be that speed. So you're going to have to make sure that you track the submarine accordingly, and he's not pulling you out of position and spotting you when you're doing so, because you'll know exactly when to release your depth charges based upon that hydroacoustic search. Of course, a lot of subs could theoretically outrun you, and drag you into poor positions, and we don't want to chase submarines in this game, especially early to mid-game. We have to hunt those submarines with our ship-based ASW later in the game, of course, unless the submarine egregiously overextends his vessel. A defense, pretty dog shit, not gonna lie. This is when the short smoke bursts, whatever, are gonna come into play. We can smoke ourselves up and hide from enemy aircraft and make sure we still have the stealth ability to our ship, and we can shoot down planes that way. If you're out in the open, it's going to be quite a problem because your AA is not going to shoot down that much, maybe one, maybe two planes before the drop, and even then, that's giving it a lot of credit. Either the submarine has to be incredibly bad, or you have to be fighting a CV player that knows exactly what he's doing. What I mean is if the CV player is bad, yeah, you're going to shoot down a shit ton of planes. It's going to fly in straight line. It's never going to hit you. If the aircraft carrier knows what he's doing, yeah, you're going to take some damage, okay? Especially with anything HE bomb related. What else to touch base on the AA? The engine juking, rudder juking with CVs, you can 100% do. I think I showcased this earlier on, maybe like my Jervis replay when I was in a CV game. You can 100% throw them off with the rudder juking of your ship because they're, again, trying to account for your speed. So if they initiate their drop, slow down, or have already slowed down to like a reverse stance, and then when you wait a second or two and then go to full speed and turn left or right, yes, this will indeed throw off their drop, and it's going to change a lot that they have to do in regards of maneuvering while they are trying or attempting to drop their bombs on you, which is thus going to increase and make their reticle bloom, which is going to, in theory, have a higher chance or likelihood of them missing you completely with their ordnance. So also you have to use that skill or keep that skill in the back of your pocket. This is something you will learn while you play this line, and this will translate to other lines, but not as effectively as the UK DD line because it's a destroyer. We're not a cruiser or a battleship. Okay. Maneuverability, you are coming in and you are tied for the slowest destroyers at tier 9, I believe. Let me just double check that. Yes, so 34 knots goes to the Jutland, the Orage, and the Barfleur, or however the hell you say that, the Barflower. But remember, the Barfleur and the Orage have the speed boosts. You do not have the speed boosts on these ships. But that also being said, you do have that in heightened acceleration. Well, the Barfleur also has the acceleration, so you know what I mean? You can kind of put two pieces of the pie together there and realize, well, I'm the slowest DD at tier 10. Or sorry, at tier 9. So just keep that in mind. So once you're going, and it's a whole hell of a lot harder to get back once you've committed to somewhere. You can still do it at 34 knots, plus the Sierra Mike flag by getting you, 36 potentially? 35 and a half, 36. Just keep that in mind that with a slower DD like this, it's harder to get from point A to point B, and it also is harder to get back from point B back to point A. So you're gonna have to predetermine and think out your maneuvers, ahead of time, and position yourself accordingly based upon the situation, what's presenting itself. Yeah, and the turning circle radius is 610 meters, and the rudder shift is 3.4. Obviously, with that rudder shift, you already have the baked-in propulsion mod, so you can go ahead and take your steering gears modification 1, and that's going to help reduce it even further. So I think like the standard rudder shift is, for the Jutland, is 4.2, and we get down to 3.4. So again, it's what I would highly recommend. And the concealment, with the concealment module mounted, so your base concealment, let me just do that first, is 7 kilometers. You take the concealment module in the fifth slot, thank you. Gets it down to 6.3. If you go ahead and take it on your commander, you're going down to 5.7, which is honestly very, very respectable, very stealthy. This is going to allow you to get your destroyer into certain positions and really catch a lot of DDs off guard. This is also going to allow you to do certain maneuvers, take advantageous positions in order to stealth torpedo people as well, because you now have the 10-kilometer radar or 10-kilometer torpedo range, but you still have to keep in mind that radar, submarines, aircraft, Soviet radar as well. So you have the 10-kilometer American, 12-kilometer Soviet, and then obviously the Royal Navy Minotaur, we have to be careful of that thing too, and the Neptune at the 10-kilometer radar as well, and they can stealth radar. So we have to be careful of all these different tools that the enemy will potentially now get. So this is why when we're first loading into the battle, we have to look out for these ships and start formulating potentially what they have and and where I'm spawning on the map and plan my maneuvers accordingly, and start producing and developing a strategy that early on in the game. Yeah, guys, and that basically sums up the Jutland from the port analysis screen and the port analysis view of things. I actually really enjoy this ship. Okay, guys, this ship is just a good combination of a lot of things that I'm looking for when I'm playing my destroyer. She looks aesthetically pleasing to you. Want to, just throw that out there. But yeah, like I think she teaches you a lot in this game that can really translate to other DD gameplay. And the best thing about her is the better you become or more familiar you become with how to play this ship will get increasingly more and more fun. And what I said about the lightning back is like, yeah, it's kind of boring just because it's fucking good. It's pretty damn good at what it does. I understand that could be a thing that a lot of players do when they label these ships in general. But I'm telling you, with the faster firing guns now, with the heal now that's in the back, in your back pocket, these ships do start to develop a more and more fun play style, which is super nice. I'm glad Wargaming gave these things a heal, because the heal is a safety net. It's not like a normal heal that's going to heal back exorbitant amounts of HP, but it is going to allow you to regain some of that lost HP that you're probably inevitably going to take because you're going to be picking a lot of gunfights with enemy destroyers at specific times. Okay. And it's also worth talking about the commander ever so slightly. Obviously, here I go with the survivability expert. If I want to drop the survivability expert, I'm going to take superintendent. Okay. The reason why I can't do it now and use these two together is because I really want to take fearless brawler. Fearless brawler is going to allow you to get my reload down even further. Right now, it's standard 4 kilometers because I'm taking the main battery mod 3, and I want to make sure I get that additional main battery reload time at minus 10%. Plus the shell flak explosions, like whatever, I don't really care. Like, it's nice, great. Maybe I'll be able to shoot down 1 or 2 more planes. But I'm really looking forward to when I pick those DD engagements against other ships, I have that little bit of an advantage. You're gonna want to take that, and I really don't see any other skill that I'm willing to let go on. I want permanent maintenance. I want last stand for obvious reasons. Survivability expert is the only skill I could manage to not take and take superintendent, and then obviously I'm taking concealment to get it down to 5.7. I'm going to take fearless brawler. I'm going to take adrenaline rush because I'm going to be doing and taking damage based upon DD engagements. Fill the tubes is another interesting skill, and this is going to be a much controversial debate with you guys, I'm sure. You're probably saying, Floppy, why don't you just drop the fill the tubes and take the superintendent? Because it's going to be flat out better for you, plus taking the fearless brawler. There you go. And I understand that. I 100% get that, and it's another skill you would 100% drop if you want to do the combination of survivability expert and superintendent. The only reason, and I repeat, the only reason I am taking fill the tubes is because my torpedo reload time, oh whoops, this is artillery. My torpedo reload time is and was above, sorry, because you can't see it here, was 133 seconds. This now gets me below the 2-minute mark, and for some reason, this coupled with my adrenaline rush, it allows my torpedoes to be a dual threat. So now I have 2 tools at my disposal more often than not, up and ready to go when I need them. I can't tell you the amount of times that my torpedoes have been up when ships try to push me in my smoke screen. When ships think they have the advantage, I can dump them around islands, and sure enough, here comes a ship around an island. I can dump them into caps, and I've hit enemy destroyers. It's nice to have the torpedoes up so that I'm a dual threat, meaning that I'm not only effective with my guns, but I'm also effective with my torpedoes. That's why I take the skill. One, I don't recommend taking main battery AA expert. I don't need to extend my range by 20% on this thing. These shells are already incredibly floaty, so good luck hitting them when you're going to 14 kilometers or whatever the hell your max range is going to be. I can see the idea of not taking fearless brawler and taking main battery AA specialist to get my guns down to 3.8. Personally, in my opinion, I'm just going to take fearless brawler because it's just going to be a skill that's going to be more universal. And especially when I choose to be spotted, that's when I want to get my big bonus. When I'm not spotted in smoke farming, yeah, 3.8 seconds is not bad. You get 10% continuous AA damage, but honestly, I'm most likely going to be spotting for my team, so that's why fearless brawler is really going to help. Because there is quite a bit scary DDs out there that are having faster reload than you, so you're going to have to factor that in as well when you're engaging them. Okay. The last skill would be demolition expert that I could consider, but you're only gaining 1% fire, which is going to get you what? to 9%, and then with your 2 flags to 10. Yeah, it's not bad. It would be another skill you have to take, but remember, I'm building my commander solely on the Jutland, and the Jutland needs help in the guns because they nerfed the gun reload time. So I'm trying to take skills like Fearless Brawler that would help emphasize that gun roll. Before, I don't know if I would have taken it. Realistically, and that's a hot take too. I don't know if I would have taken it because it already reloaded fast enough. Yeah, would you want to reload faster? Probably. So I probably maybe. I don't know. I just now for sure it's a must. I have to take this skill because it's what 4.5 second base reload plus the main battery mod 3 is getting to 4, and I think it used to have 3.5. So I want to get close to that. So what it's used to be like. Just my opinion on her because the Jutland has gone through changes and I want to change with her and be able to play her similar to the way I was able to used to play her that got me those fantastic results in ranked and in randoms. So that's my captain build, and that's why I chose to build her the way I built her. Obviously, I usually don't sit down and talk about the commander build. I usually just like do it as like a secondary thought in the gameplay review. But I figured with the Jutland, it is essential to talk about the captain build a little bit so you understand where I'm coming from when I'm building her. She is a good hybrid that I think leans ever so slightly more towards the guns. And I think the guns is what's going to allow you to stay alive longer and do the most benefit to your team. So just my opinion. But again, I want to be able to have that dual threat. So that's why, again, I picked up the Fill the Tubes Captain Commander skill as well. Again, you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it at all. It's just something that helps me, and I found myself in multiple situations where that skill alone has helped me come out and live through engagements because I have my torpedoes up, and I'm not waiting over 2 minutes to have my torpedoes up. So, but anyway, guys, that is the port analysis. Let's go ahead and show you some gameplay in the Jutland. Alrighty, so here we are in game with the Jutland. We have loaded into this map, which I cannot remember the name because I never remember the names of the map, so it really doesn't matter. But we do spawn on the C flank, and the C flank is kind of one of those, if you commit, there's really no outway, so you have to kind of swoop in at an angle and make sure you have a disengagement plan. Obviously, it is a tier 10 game. We do have tier 10 aircraft carriers, everybody's favorite, so we're going to have to play around that and understand that our role as a spotter is still essential and important, but we also have to keep in mind that the CV can also initiate that role and do that role as well. So we theoretically could spend a little bit more time in our smoke generator farming enemy ships if we need to. So, but anyways, let's talk about the Jutland. We've already talked about kind of the overall identity of the play style and all that jazz, but the one thing I want to talk about is her negative and her downside, which is the speed. The speed does kill. That is a saying, but also the lack thereof does get you killed. And the Jutland definitely does not have that much speed. As you can see, we're going around our 35 knot top speed because, of course, we're taking the Sierra Mike flag, which I highly recommend any and all players will do when they play these ships. I also popped, to go ahead on a side note, I popped the Hydroacoustic Search with the Hydroacoustic Search modification in that second slot to extend the duration right before I enter the cap. Now, why is this? Because there is, I think, a enemy European DD on the enemy team. Like, no, maybe I could be wrong. But regardless, I always do this because in case of rogue torpedoes that might hit in the cap. Obviously, the Chapayev is radaring me, so I'm going to try to rudder juke and engine juke and get out of the cap before anyone shoots at me, but yet no one shot me, so that was great. I always love seeing that. So I guess the Chapayev was mostly radaring B and not really intended for me. We have an enemy Tromp. Now, most players in this situation would go ahead and start opening up on the Tromp. Now, the reason why I didn't open up on the Tromp is because I'm trying to anticipate his maneuvers. And I think he's going to try to hide behind that island and try to cap out this point. That is what I would do, and I'm thinking that's what he's going to do. But I just don't quite aim my torpedoes right in the right direction, and he's actually turned a lot tighter and his ass facing me, which again is a great play by him, and I end up missing my torpedoes. But there was no reason to engage there. Again, one thing that you can always say is kind of like an underrated skill, not necessarily just with this line or to this line specifically, but it's just gameplay in general, is knowing when and when not to shoot your guns. Obviously, we're trying to make use of the armor piercing, and you're seeing quite a steep angle that the Tromp is at, is angling towards me, and yet we're still getting those pens, those full penetrations. just so you guys get a glimpse of how good that armor piercing is, and please make use of that. We've already racked up around 7,000 damage strictly on that basis of using that alone, and we out DPM the Trump as well. The only thing the reason I wanted to eliminate the Trump ASAP is because the Trump does not, the Trump has those fucking airstrikes, and that is going to be a big nuisance to my ships, allied ships that are up here trying to help me. So I want to make sure I can go ahead and try to eliminate him ASAP. Again, all he has to do is let me push into him, but we're going to see if we can somehow force him to push into us. The Trump is a great denial ship, kind of like my ship is as well, but his is in the essence of bringing fear with his airstrikes and doing that passive damage rather than me having to sacrifice HP and position accordingly in order to obtain that damage usually. Just two different mentalities kind of trying to do the same thing, even though I can assure you that the Trump is 100% more cancerous solely based on that gimmick and that gimmick alone. Trump is pushing in again, trying, I'm assuming, to detect me because he realizes he has his allies' support, so we're going to head and disengage. Notice I started with the armor piercing, but he's not really giving me a good angle, and as you see, I ricochet 4 shells there, so I'm going ahead and going to switch right back to the high explosive to at least do some kind of consistent damage to the guy. HE will always be a more consistent ammunition type, whereas AP, you're kind of trying to min-max it and kind of roll the die here and there depending on the angle that the enemy ship is in. Again, the HE is still no slouch, guys. You're still going to set a lot of fires and do just some good raw pen damage with her as well. So please, at times, don't feel like you have to solely shoot armor piercing. It's just I'm trying to min-max it. You don't have to do that by any means. But it is a tactic that, again, with this armor piercing and how good it is, I don't know why you wouldn't want to make use of it. It's kind of my whole idea behind it. High fire chance, as you're going to see. We're going to go ahead and farm these battleships a little bit to try to reset the cap to stall as long as possible. Obviously, this cap is FUBAR. It's 100% going to be theirs. We have lost this cap. But we're going to try to at least produce somewhat of a fight to make it a little bit of a challenge for them to try to cap it. Whoever shoots the Ulstrike, by the way, is also a big friend of mine. No idea who it was, but someone pounds him and takes him to considerably low HP. Which is awesome. I know it happens later on, but I just want to go ahead and shoot that out there earlier on than later. But yeah, so one thing you're seeing I'm doing is I'm making use of the island cover, especially right now because we have CVs spotting for us. I think I might as well take advantage of it, because if I can trade enemy HP for 0 of mine, I think that's good, and you want to do that, especially in a destroyer where you have such a smaller HP pool in general. It's really good to do that. I always talk about putting yourself in situations and scenarios where if I can just basically get damage rather than receive damage, that's a win in my book. As long as targets are lit, I can sit behind this island and shoot. But I don't want to sit for too long because I also want to supply that vision and let my team know where the enemy destroyers are at. Destroyers definitely 100% win you games. We know this. This is a fact. They have a lot of pull in the battle as much as aircraft carriers, if not aircraft carriers ever being ever so slightly above them. And since it is a CV game, obviously I have to keep that in the back of my mind. CV games change the way the battle is played, and you have to adapt or you're going to die. Now listen, this is coming from someone that doesn't like aircraft carriers. I think they're probably my most hated class. I don't mind submarines. I can tolerate them a little bit more, but aircraft carriers I despise. Do I play them? Very, very rarely. I only play them when I need to do certain missions, to be absolutely honest with you guys. But I really don't play aircraft carriers because right now in their current state, I'm not a big fan of the spotting. They have a lot of tools going for them, and it makes a lot of it basically throws the balance trinity, if that's what you want to call it, out of whack. Again, it's never been about the damage for me. I really don't care about that. It's always been about the spotting, and I can't stand the spotting that the ships can do. But again, that's a topic for a separate video that I will never make because there's no point. You either like them or you hate them. There's no trying to convince people that love the ships, and there's no way you're going to convince people that hate them, right? It's just something that you just know, right? So anyways, again, why are we single launching our torpedoes here? Well, because the Iowa has come to a full stop and is not turning left or right. So I know that this is when the single launch torpedoes are being able to be used. I know this is the situation in the scenario that the single launch torpedoes are going to get me the torpedo ribbon hits that I am looking for, and I know he's just going to reverse behind the island because he doesn't want to come out in front of the 2 or 3 enemy ships that are around that island chain. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot him with HE, see if I can get set a fire here, maybe pop the damage control party, and then hopefully get a flood with a fire. Oh, sorry, well, fire obviously, but hopefully get a flood so I can flood him while his damage control party is off cooldown. Obviously, if I land enough torpedoes, I will sink the guy because there is no torpedo bulges on the nose, and that is exactly where I'm landing all my torpedoes. And as you can see, we are able to single launch our way right to sinking him, which is huge. We know there's an enemy Jaeger floating around somewhere around these parts, so we're going to try to engage him, and sure enough, there are the torpedoes. Obviously, I'm going to eat one most likely, which is okay. We're going to eat one. That's still... Jaeger torpedoes don't do much damage, so we're going to try to engage him in a gunfight. We pop our heal immediately, and here comes the rudder juking, engine juking, and trying to throw off his shells as much as possible. I want to be hitting a minimum. I want only 2 or 1 of his shells to hit me at a time out of his 3. He does have the 150mm guns, has a slow reload. He's definitely not a gunboat. He's definitely more of a torpedo boat. But that being said, he can definitely do some serious damage with those bad boys. Again, we're trying to keep our nose forward, kind of swivel our ass to and from, try to throw off his shells as much as possible. But again, with our armor piercing and able to get those full penetrations on his broadside and hitting specific parts of his ship that are not saturated, we go ahead and win this engagement. And it's one thing you always can do, it is a very underrated skill in this game, and it allows you to kill ships faster, is if you hit specific parts of their ship rather than just shooting at the same portion of their ship all the time. Why is this? This is because of saturation. Saturation is a mechanic that basically splits up the HP into various parts of the vessel, allowing you to take HP from it and eventually drains it down to 0 when all HP from like sections of 1, 2, and 3 are all entirely drained. Saturation is going to show you when that specific part is basically HP'd out. There's no more HP to be taken from that area, and you're only basically going to be getting overpens from that specific area, and a lot less damage is going to be drawn from that specific area. Again, I will make a video on that way down the road of things you may not know about World of Warships, but right now there's no point really talking about it. Obviously, one thing you're noticing with the Jutland is I have loitered and lingered around Cap C the entire game. And why is this? This is because what this ship does very well, and what this line does very well, it allows us to play a specific point on the map and defend it incredibly hard and incredibly effective. I'm finally hopping into the capture point. I'm going to try to capture this point. As you could tell, there really was no time I could actually capture this specific set point on the map or during the game at any point in time. There was just too many enemies over here, so I had to react to that. A lot of players, I feel, would try because they feel they have to capture the point and actually get themselves killed because of that. Don't be that player. You have to read the map. Even with your slower speed, you can 100% disengage, so disengage at the appropriate times. Again, here's a good example of the CV. He's close enough. I'm going to pop my A. He thinks he's going to come in at like a 45 degree, 90 degree angle, whatever it is, and skip bomber me. No chance. Going to go ahead and engine juke him and get my power up to maximum speed so that it's going to throw off his aiming reticle. It's one thing, it's one tactic that I highly recommend you can utilize. Because it really is going to allow you to throw off a shit ton of enemies. Now, I admit mistakes. There's a difference between me and a lot of players is I 100% admit when I am wrong. I severely misjudged the acceleration and turning speed of this Immelmann. This should, in all essence, be my time to go ahead and kill the Immelmann. But instead, I misjudge it, and all my torpedoes go behind his ship. Even though I knew he started to turn this direction, I was like, I'm going to launch ahead of the white indicator. There's no way. And he gets away with bloody fucking murder. Very frustrated at myself for this because I thought this was going to blow us the game. But I'm very fortunate and happy that my ally here, I think in the Kushiro, goes ahead and eliminates the Immelmann for me. Because wow, I was pissed. I was actually seeing red when this happened. So, but my big concern is that Trump. That Trump is on my right. So I want to make sure that I can shoot as long as possible. But when that Trump gets detected, go ahead and flip my 360 degree turret to route and shoot the enemy Trump. Again, I'm shooting HE because I'm looking for those low pens. He's all such low life anyways. It really wouldn't make sense switching to armor piercing. So I just stayed with HE. Obviously the Iowa is going to go ahead and nuke me, which is nothing I can do here because my smoke doesn't come up for about 10 more seconds. Also, side note, Akrashiro doesn't kill the Immelman. I believe the Immelman gets away with Bloody Murder again, and maybe someone kills him later on in the battle. But yeah, my final thoughts, guys. The Jutland is a fantastic little ship. I love this ship to death. She's very good at holding down positions and locking down sectors. She has incredible gun power, though you have to spec into it because she didn't used to have that. She's incredibly stealthy, so she can take advantage of those advantageous positions, and then her torpedo power can be strong as well if you spec into it, getting it under a 2-minute reload. As you can see, I always had my torpedoes up that game, and I was able to make use of them, especially if I hit the damn target, not missing the Immelman completely. So anyways, guys, that is the Jutland gameplay for you and review. Hopefully you guys like it, and I will see you all in the next one with the daring analysis. Catch you all in the next one, and peace out.